We're taking a look at Speed Limit, a pixel art shooter slash driver slash aerial dogfighter that switches genres at breakneck speed. Hey guys, it's Cody with Indie Game Pulse, where we bring you the hottest indie games with the coolest memes. If you want to find out about the newest and best indie games and hear genuine reviews from an indie game fanatic like yourself, click the subscribe button and notification bell to make sure you don't miss another video. Let's get into it. Speed Limit comes from the developer GameChuck out of Croatia and is coming to PC and all consoles beginning February 15th for the price of $9.99. If you're interested in playing it yourself, all the links to purchase or wishlist will be in the description below. I was given a review copy of the game, but I've done my best to stay objective in my critical evaluation. If you've seen any trailers for Speed Limit, you know that the whole game revolves, literally, around perspective and gameplay changes. But the game instantly transported me into the over-the-top action movies of the 80s and 90s. Think The Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger, or maybe a more modern example is the Transporter series with Jason Statham. Shoot, even the more recent Fast and Furious movies could be an inspiration. In Speed Limit, you start as a simple man just riding a train, when out of nowhere an armed man bumps into you and hands you his gun. Now, the transportation police see you holding a gun, and they don't like it very much. NANI?! So they form a conga line and just start shooting. And now the fun begins. As you run for your life through the train, you'll need to identify enemies and take them out with your newly acquired pistol. Movement and shooting are very simple, and you can aim with either your left or right stick on a controller. I actually found the movement and ducking to be more manageable with the D-pad, and used my right stick then to aim. Each stage in the game utilizes some different mechanics that are flashed on the screen for a short time, and then you will need to think on your feet and decipher how best to make your way through the area while eliminating the enemies. Your path is always forward, but the gameplay loop is very trial and error, meaning you'll be replaying the same sections over and over again. But the enemies behave the same on every run, so they are patterned and somewhat predictable. The enemies will come at you from all angles, some even in disguise, and you will need to learn from your past mistakes. There are several soft save points in each area, meaning once you progress past that point and die, you will be reset to that spot, not the beginning of the level. These progress points aren't marked, but they are super helpful in ensuring you advance through each stage. As you progress through the levels, the gameplay changes from side-scrolling running and gunning to top-down drive-by shooting to isometric and head-on aerial dogfighting, and in my opinion, the levels just keep getting better and more difficult. The level art and design is very well thought out, and I'll get to that more in a little bit. While there certainly are surprising elements in every stage, there's nothing too overbearing that can't be conquered with plenty of good old rinse and repeat. If this doesn't sound like your style of gameplay, just know that the game is relatively short. It took me about 1 hour and 15 minutes on my first playthrough, and there is an easy mode as well as a third mode which you'll unlock after beating the game. After your first playthrough, every subsequent run will be timed as well, so that you can see how much you progress compared to early runs. There are currently no in-game leaderboards for speedrunning, and I'll be curious to see if that's something that is added. I think it could be useful given the nature of the game and the time trials that are already included. Within each level there are also boss fights of sorts. Nothing which stops the action, but they will require multiple attempts again to learn and defeat. These really took me back to the days of Super Nintendo and Sega action gaming. But Speed Limit is so much more than a throwback or an homage to action games and movies, as it brings in its own flavor of transitioning and never lets the player take his foot off the pedal for a second. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the puzzling and somewhat platforming mechanics in Speed Limit. Trying to find the most efficient path while dodging bullets and speeding cars and miniguns mounted in truck beds was such a blast, and each new perspective brings such a wonderful change of flavor in such a short game. And I say platforming mechanics because the levels don't change, so you will need to learn the patterns and behavior of enemies and obstacles to stay alive and progress. My favorite levels in the game were the train sequence and dogfighting scene, and you can see just how different the perspectives are. The transitions between scenes play out like an action movie, with someone or something swooping in at the last second to save the day, but not for long. As I mentioned earlier, the controls are very simple. You run and steer with your left hand and shoot with your right trigger on the controller. I found it easier to aim with the right thumbstick too. You can also crouch by pointing down on the left stick or D-pad, and you jump with the B button. All controls are remappable, which is a nice touch even with the simple control scheme. I found the controls to be very responsive, but your gun has a certain cooldown similar to pulling a trigger in real life. The controls felt so fun to play with, especially the handgun sections where you can just swing the gun up for one shot and one kill and keep on moving. It's very crisp. I did find that the jump action seemed a little imprecise in a few areas, especially when I felt like I needed to wait until the last second to jump, which led to several deaths, but it was really only in 1 or 2 specific spots that I found this happening. I usually wouldn't spend this much time in a game review talking about art and style choices, but Speed Limit deserves some special time for the effort they've put into making beautiful and smart scenery. Not only is it filled with colorful and attractive pixel art scenery and characters, but there is such a high level of diversity, not only from one level to the next with the perspective changes, but within each level too. Just look at the folks on the train in the first level. There's such a range of riders here, from the trench coats reading the paper, to the person laying on the seat talking on the phone, to the diverse enemies dropping in from the ceiling and popping up from the floor. And I want to show off a bit of helicopter footage as well, because you might think from a diagonal angle it might be hard to dodge enemy aircraft and bullets, but the developers made sure to make the shadow of your heli stand out clearly so that you can know your exact location, and bullets and missiles always splash in the water to show their exact location too. Each frame of animation is hand-drawn, and you can tell that an immense amount of detail and love was put into each and every second of the game. And guys, that's the beauty of Speed Limit's art. The scenes are beautiful in themselves. I mean, just look at this dogfighting scene.
Just look at it!
It's by far my favorite, but there are so many little details throughout the entire game that stood out to me. Your character's hair blowing in the wind as you drive your motorcycle, bullet marks appearing on planes only in areas where you've actually shot, the helicopter's minigun actually rotating. These are things that you probably wouldn't miss if the developer hadn't put in the extra time, but they make the scenes and characters feel so much more alive. The art, along with sound effects, also serves to give you cues as to where to move or shoot. For instance, back to the helicopter scene, you can hear jets descending from above and also see their shadows on the water so that you can know where to shoot or dodge. In the dogfighting sequence, you can see enemies approaching in the distance from behind, and you hear a radar ding when a missile is locked onto you so that you can drop a flare and avoid the impact. In the car chase scene, if you're in a lane heading toward an oncoming car that's off screen, it will beep its horn until either you move or collide with it and become roadkill. Speed Limit combines smart visual cues with brilliant audio prompts to let you know exactly what's happening when. In all of these fast-paced environments, you just need to slow down for a moment and take everything in sometimes to fully appreciate the many features that are working together in perfect harmony. And while we're talking about sound, this soundtrack has to be straight out of a cheesy action movie, and it kinda slaps. Filled with fast-paced synth and pumping beats, it actually feels like it heightens your awareness in the game and almost gets your adrenaline pumping. It is the perfect music to play during an intense chase sequence, and the way that the sound designer crafted the soundtrack, it never lets up from its frenetic pace, and it definitely never gets boring. Now, is Speed Limit missing anything? Personally, I can see an endless runner mode being a ton of fun, especially if you could choose which level to play it on. Trying to run and shoot for as long as possible on the train, with enemies and obstacles never letting up, would be cool, but since every level is handcrafted, I doubt my idea is even a possibility given the amount of work that would have to be put in to keep the levels from repeating too much. And without a global leaderboard in-game, I think many players may not run through the game more than 2 to 3 times before being done. But honestly, I ran through it 3 times for achievement's sake, and it was still fun and challenging on my 3rd run. And for $9.99, I know I'm asking for too much. So the question is, should you play Speed Limit? I highly recommend it. I can almost guarantee it is a change of pace from any game you've played recently, or maybe ever. The action is intense, and while it can be repetitive for a few minutes here and there, it is so much fun and it's always exciting. The melding and twisting of different genres is fresh and innovative, and almost feels like you're playing 11 minigames combined into one story. And the handcrafted touches that are so evident in the art and music really warrant a closer look. Thank you so much for watching my review of Speed Limit. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe so you can be notified when I publish my next indie game review, and let me know in the comments what you think of Speed Limit. I'd love to hear from all of you out there. Thank you as well to my 221 subscribers for your continued support. For more indie game reviews and countdowns, check out the videos on your screen now, and I'll see you on the other side.